Hello, and welcome to this Analyst Angle to discuss the importance of networking APIs in modern telco environments. I'm Bob LaLiberte, Principal Analyst with theCUBE Research. And today, I'm joined by Shkumbin Hamiti, Head of Network Monetization Platform for Nokia. Welcome, Shkumbin.
Thank you, Bob. It's good to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. And you know, this is clearly a really hot topic. It's really emerging, this network application programming interfaces or APIs, right, and all the emerging platforms that are coming around them. It's really a great opportunity for service providers, especially as these 5G networks are evolving and becoming increasingly programmable. The telcos are starting to expose those valuable capabilities to developers, right, through these standardized APIs, enabling them to unlock new revenue streams, some new use cases, and really helping out a lot of different industries. Now, we think much of this is driven by a lot of global initiatives, right? There's GSMA's Open Gateway, TM Forums, Open APIs, Linux Foundation Chimera project. And the aim, obviously, to simplify access to these network functions that were traditionally locked deep inside this proprietary telco infrastructure. So super excited to have you on so we can talk about the market, talk about Nokia's API strategy and your vision for the marketplace, and how you're helping these organizations, service providers, developers, right, uncover some of that network complexity, align with industry standards, and maybe engage in that broader community as well. So why don't we get started by just getting your take on your current perspective of the network API market as it sits today.
Yeah, so Bob, just as you said, this is one of the most discussed topic after the AI. So I say the API is the one that is the second hottest topic in the industry, and especially important for the telecom industry. I believe that the network API opportunity is one of the most important tool sets that the telecom world has to actually make it possible to become relevant in the industries where we know the telco world can create tremendous value and are creating tremendous value. It is really important for the telecom industry to get this one right this time. This is not the first time that the telecom industry has attempted to open up their capabilities and offer them to developers. Those who have been around, they remember activities driven by GSMA as well, maybe 11 or 12 years ago, and that was not very successful. The signs are very encouraging. You mentioned the range of the industry activities from the GSMA Open Gateway initiative to Chimera Linux Foundation open source project, and a number of activities as well around TM Forum. When you see the engagement, the number of companies and the discussion that is ongoing in that domain, I just feel very encouraged that this time we are going to get it right. What you call the locked proprietary behind proprietary technologies, it's very much true. That's the way how the telecom industry has always worked. A set of standards which were very complex, and they are complex for a reason. I'm not criticizing that, but making them available to developers is something that we have not succeeded in a large scale so far. Opportunity with network API is ahead of us, and we are still at an early stage, but I'm pretty confident that we have the right step. We have taken the right steps.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, a lot of this is driven also by the transformation in these back-end environments. I remember when I was in the telco industry about 7 or 8 years ago, everything was appliance-based, very much locked in, right? You couldn't access anything. And now we're moving towards more cloud-native type environments, all software based, right? So things are changing, things are opening up. The ability to access these capabilities are really happening. And that's part of the big transition with 5G.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for bringing that up. That's another important factor, actually, that the technology right now with 5G is by its nature allowing these capabilities to be exposed.
Yeah.
One could argue that maybe 12 years ago or so that was not the case.
Yeah.
Certainly, it was not the case 20 years ago or so when to program even a simple service for the core network required a deep knowledge of the specific coding, which was proprietary. You had to understand a lot as a telecom engineer to be able to even define a simple service like, I don't know, call forwarding. Today, what's in our hands is that you could actually do a lot more with few lines of codes. And that is what the 5G technology has been delivering. And by the way, it is actually deployed by a large number of operators. So that capability is already sitting with many operators around the world. It just waits to be, let's say, unleashed and open up to the users.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time, and it sounds great. And the interesting part is we talked about standardizing APIs, but we rattled off multiple open projects that are slightly different from each other. What do you think are some of the biggest barriers for these telcos in exposing their network capabilities through the APIs?
Well, I think the biggest barrier is how do we get this time the simplicity for developers right? That's the number one challenge, I believe, for the whole telco industry. As I told earlier, these are complex systems. Making it available to developers who know nothing about 3GPP or Camara or GSMA or any of our telco jargon, that's the first barrier that we have to cross. Of course, there are other barriers. Security is obviously extremely important. You are opening up the core networks, the heart of the network, to a hopefully millions of developers out there. Clearly, you want to think about security and have that sorted out properly. There are other things which are also specific to the telco industry. The telco industry is quite heavily regulated, which requires compliance with various laws, privacy laws or laws like know your customer and similar type of regulations. So those are also barriers that we must tackle in a way that it's, again, simple from the developer's perspective. But probably the biggest barrier, and this is something that I link it to my first kind of optimistic tone. The first and the kind of important part of important barrier is telco needs to change its own thinking. We need to think developer first. We need to think and get out of our telco jargon and approach the developers under their own terms. And this is a mindset change and behavioral change from a telco industry, which takes time to go through.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, a lot of times we've seen this time and time again. The technology transition can occur in a pretty short time frame, but the cultural changes, the process changes sometimes take a lot longer to do that. And I liked your comment about having to think application developer first mindset for these telcos, right? Especially if they want to monetize the capabilities that they've built out. Along those lines, when I'm thinking about the developers taking advantage of these capabilities, I'm wondering if you could share what you think what are going to be some of the real world applications that are going to come out of this first, and maybe even some of the verticals that will benefit the most from having this network programmability.
Yeah, so first of all, I have to say that as we are still early on, and the past history of digital ecosystem creation tells that the use cases are built and are shown to be useful only when you start actually utilizing the platforms which are available to developers.
Yep.
So I can't say right now which of the use cases will be the ones that will be most valuable for certain verticals. However, we are seeing the emergence of certain useful capabilities for certain verticals. And in that respect, we from Nokia, together with our partners, have been engaging in some of the flagship use case demonstrations. The specific verticals that I'm talking about are transportation vertical, media and entertainment, and of course, financial services. Let me take you one by one, just in no particular order. But if I start from actually the most interesting and most challenging to enable. Let's take an example in the transportation when with the emergence of remote operation of vehicles or even autonomous vehicles out there. The role of networks is absolutely mission critical. When you deal with remotely driven vehicles out there, you want to have a good quality audio and video, as well as a good quality connection to the control modules of the vehicles, right? And there cannot be a situation when the network will not work. It's okay if the network is not working for a few seconds while you're using TikTok or Instagram or similar things like that. But if you're driving a vehicle, even in a private roads, you need a high quality of service for the network connectivity. Now, we have demonstrated one use case which we have demonstrated in the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona this year, where we partnered with a company from Estonia called Elmo that provides technologies for remotely driving cars on the public streets. And they rely on the network connectivity. What we demonstrated in Barcelona was a car was in Malaga, and it was driven from Barcelona, about a few hundred kilometers away. The car was connected to Telefónica's network, and we used quality of service on demand to secure the quality of service of that particular connection there. At the same time, there was another car which was driven from Barcelona as well, but the car was here in Espoo in Finland. And that car was connected to the Elisa's network here, the operator in Finland. Again, there we use the quality of service to secure the connectivity of the video and audio and control module feed from the control panel. So this is one example. Another example of remotely controlling or enabling autonomous operations was we have demonstrated several times autonomous beyond visual line of sight flying of the drones. We had an engagement with Deutsche Telekom and Citymesh from Belgium, where we flew the drone in German airspace, controlled from Belgium. Again, the Deutsche Telekom's location API and the quality of service on-demand API was used to make this mission possible. So when you think about it, from the perspective of the emerging transport type of solution, 5G capabilities around guaranteeing the quality of service are those that are emerging. Now, there are other verticals, clearly. If I go those two from the network perspective, simple to deploy, let's put it that way. Yep. On the financial industry, there are a range of capabilities that are sitting with network operators that are useful for aiding anti-fraud activities within the financial sector. Examples of those are as simple as your rough device location. As an example, if I travel, say, from Finland to London, and then I pay with my credit card in some point of sale in London, as part of the authorization, first checking if this card is active, do I have enough funds? There's another layer that we can add to it, saying like, let's check where is Shkumbin's phone. If Shkumbin's phone is within the vicinity where the payment is happening, then the likelihood of fraud goes down. But if Shkumbin's phone is in Helsinki, well, that could be an issue. Because there is a big kind of risk of fraud there. Other examples can be knowing when you make a payment from the device, whether the SIM has been changed. We seem to be one of the fraudulent cases when the financial transactions happen from phones which do not belong to the actual account owner. And by knowing and checking whether the SIM has been activated or switched recently, it could add to the anti-fraud algorithms for the financial institutions. There are other use cases in the financial institutions which are also quite important. Then there are others for media and entertainment. Again, if you want to use 5G networks for broadcasting of live sports events or live events anywhere, if you have a capability to secure quality of service on demand, I think that would be a useful application capability for those who run this business. So there's a wide range of lighthouse use cases that we see. However, the most important part is that we need to open up the networks, give it into the hands of developers, and see what they can come up. Those that I talk about are some that we have developed with our partners. They could be valuable in the future, but I expect many, many more use cases to appear.
No, I think that
a long answer here, but
no, I think that was great. That was really comprehensive, and it gave, I think, a lot of the viewers an understanding of what the potential is of how we can use this. I know as you were going through, the one that resonated with me was the proximity of your phone to the credit card being used. As an analyst, we bounce back and forth between Europe and the US sometimes, and nothing more frustrating than coming back from a trip to Europe and going to use your credit card back in the States and having it be denied because it thinks you're in Europe and so forth. So definitely can see the value in that, and obviously giving better customer experience. Obviously more important than that, though, for these companies is ensuring there's no fraud being committed. So great. I loved all those examples. Wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about your network as a code platform. I know you've already got a lot of partners signed up for it, and talking about how that's simplifying developer access to these telcos, and what kind of tools or abstractions does the platform provide to get over that complexity?
Yeah, so our approach to building this platform has been, as I said earlier, having developer first in mind.
Yeah.
We thought we need to sort out the developer journey wherever the developer sits. That's an important part of this whole notion of serving the developers there. In order to achieve that, one of the key issues that developers, I wouldn't say hate, but they just dislike, is that when they don't know whether the certain feature works everywhere. So having this kind of fragmented experience on the developer side is a bad thing. So the first thing we thought is, how do we build an offering to developers that appears that it has a global availability? So that's one side of the platform. The other side of the platform is to enable that developer experience. We need to go country by country, operator by operator, connect to their capabilities, get access to the network assets that they own, and through the platform, make it available to the developers node-bound. That's how we develop this particular platform. In that context, we've gone, as I said, country by country, operator by operator. We have now over 30 operators with whom we have signed a collaboration agreement, and we have over 25 enterprise partners with whom we are developing some of those use cases that I described earlier. So this particular platform is global by nature. It offers a set of network APIs, which are, by the way, CAMARA compliant, as they've been specified by the Linux Foundation. As of today, we have 14 APIs, which we offer in 4 different categories. One is network performance management, quality service on demand, slice management, and so on. Then opening up network insights, the data that is within the operator network with respect to the network capability. As an example, knowing the quality of the network along a certain route for flying the drone or flying or driving a remotely controlled vehicle or autonomous vehicle. That's an interesting kind of insight and an API that the developers could use. So that is in the category of network insights. The third category is the device insights, when information like whether the device is on or off, simple as that, whether the device is connected or disconnected from the network, and few other type of capabilities such as device location and so on. And then we have a category around anti-fraud, as I talked about, like SIM swap, number verify, know your customer, and similar type of. Overall, 14 APIs, which we offer currently. And we have, of course, a roadmap of adding more APIs over that. For the developers, we offer that radical simplicity. If you go to our portal, you can sign in as a developer, get access to the full documentation. Actually, I don't think you need to even sign in to get access to the documentation. There are AI features to help the developers code faster. Those are part of the platform that we've created. And I've demonstrated even publicly in some events an ease of use that with few lines of code, you can do quite incredible things as part of your application. The simplicity that we create through this platform is remarkable. And we think that this kind of double-sided platform with all its features will enable a wide range of use cases for various industries out there.
Yep. No, I think that's great. Yeah, helping both the telcos and those application developers. I wanted to touch on something else. Nokia, recently acquired Rapid as well. And I'm wondering how that impacts the strategy we've just discussed for engaging with developers, and if it has any impact on the network as a code platform.
Yeah, so Rapid is a company, a startup company from Silicon Valley, with whom we worked already since 2023. And we came to learn of the capabilities of the platform and the talent that developed the platform. So we acquired the platform and the talent just in November 2024, so a few months ago. And the platform and the team are now fully part of our organization. What we've learned early on is that in order to serve the developers the way I described, you need the full set of capabilities as part of your platform. That requires capability to do the API management properly, to do the documentation properly, to have the proxy architecture done properly, and as well all kind of analytics functions on charging and billing functions for the API usage. All those capabilities were part of the platform that we acquired. In addition to that, the Rapid had a world's largest public API marketplace, where we see more than 40,000 APIs being provided by various providers globally. There is a lot of learning for the telecom industry from the way how those developers engage with APIs, the way they use the API frameworks. And that helps us build a platform that will serve the telecom industry much, much better. So we think that with that capability, we have created a complete set of capabilities for our platform that handles from the most complex tasks of connecting to the networks through functions such as network exposure function and network exposure platform to an offering to developers northbound. So this, to my understanding, is one of the most complete platforms out there in the market.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an impressive platform, and I think I read something like they have over 4 million developers currently in that rapid ecosystem. So I'm curious to you about how you plan to activate and even incentivize that community to explore and build on the 5G APIs and work with the telcos.
Yeah, so certainly those 4 million API developers, 4 million developers on the API marketplace, they are from all kind of industries, from all kind of types of APIs that you could think of. So, however, not many of them are using network APIs. So we're using that as a vehicle to actually promote the network API capabilities to the developers out there, get the feedback, make our platform even better, and get the best offering through the iteration. What's also important to reiterate here is that we are still at the early stage of this whole network API business. Therefore, the learning from other digital ecosystems are very important at this stage, and we use those 4 million developer experiences to actually learn and have better offering for the network API developers.
Well, excellent, and that sounds like a great plan. It seems like we often talk about different maturity models and being able to learn from more mature environments to be able to accelerate new ones. And it sounds like that's what you're doing here, is being able to leverage the lessons learned from the rapid ecosystem and be able to apply that to the telco space so that you can accelerate the adoption of these APIs and be able to make sure you're doing all the right things to ensure that those developers can easily get access to those for the use cases that they want to, regardless of what industry that they're in.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, listen, this has been a great conversation. I've certainly learned a lot. I hope everyone watching has as well. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have right now, but I want to thank you, Shkumbin, for joining me today.
Thank you, Bob, and it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for watching this Analyst Angle on the rapidly evolving network API market. Now, for more details about Nokia's API offerings, please visit the Nokia website.